and that's why Bitcoin is almost scary for a lot of people, that in the capacity that it doesn't have a regulatory body, it doesn't have like a board of directors that manage it. It's just a whole bunch of people using it, and a whole bunch of developers that are fueling the open source platform.
Hi, Brian here, and welcome to Treebud Academy. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the podcast, and I'm so excited to have Reggie back on the podcast again. We chatted a lot last time, and if you missed the episode, you can feel free to watch it, and I'll include it in the info card above. Reggie, welcome back.
Hey, Brian, how's it going, man?
Good. For those who don't know who you are, maybe give us a quick intro, and then we'll dive into our topic today.
Yeah, sure. Like we talked about before in the last podcast that we did together. I'm a growth marketer. I specialize in fintech and blockchain cryptocurrency. Although I've worked in different industries for that matter. But I do a lot of marketing strategy. I work with different clients across the world, and we had the pleasure of working together as well too at one point. Definitely it's been a cool journey. I write on a marketing Substack called Marketer Daily, where I write 2 to 3 emails a week. And we cover things in terms of like entrepreneurial marketing and different aspects of marketing that you generally don't find in a traditional, marketing learning setting. So, it's been a fun journey in terms of my marketing career. So it's kind of what I do, is just talk about marketing and do a lot of that too.
Yeah, it's great because in our last episode, we gave out some free advice and tips on marketing and growth hacking, social media, YouTube advice. And I love your Substack because it gives a wealth of information in a short but like entertaining read. And I find the little personal touches, the playlists, all give it rounds it out. So it's not just like a business newsletter. Right?
Yeah. It's that's the thing, is that sometimes people kind of forget about the fun and things, and everyone's experience, whatever career it is, it doesn't matter if it's marketing or not. Everyone's experience in their career is different, and what makes everyone's story more unique is the experiences that they go through, not just in their career life, but also their personal life too. So, look, at the end of the day, if I could dress up like Iron Man every single day and do my calls, I think that'd be pretty cool. But realistically, it's about getting work done, getting cool things done, but at the same time taking along people on your journey. So,
yeah, I love that you mentioned Iron Man. It's one of my favorites Marvel characters.
Did I ever tell you?
I get so many comments.
Did I ever tell you, by the way? Sorry, man. That I dressed up as Iron Man, I think, for 2 or 3 straight years for Halloween.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and
do you have like the full like costume, like moving parts and whatnot?
Definitely not. That's like a couple $1,000 investment. But I definitely grabbed just it looked like unfortunately, a lot of them look like jogging pants, like a full jogging suit. But ultimately, what I did was I took that. And I installed some LED lights inside the helmet, so that, it's obviously lit from underneath. I blacked it out from the inside so it doesn't look like it's going through plastic. And then I even had a few those touchpad light things that I attached to my hands so that I had repulsor beams on my hands. And on top of that, I also had didn't really work the way I wanted to, but I had the Jarvis app connected through a Bluetooth speaker that was coming through my chest, so it sounded like I had anyway, getting a little bit nerdy, but but you know what I mean. It was pretty much hardcore into that at that point.
No, it's amazing you mentioned that, because I get so many comments about my Funko Pop, all the people that I have Zoom meetings with, because everything's virtual now. Like even prospective clients come in and say, "Wow, it's amazing that you give a personal touch. You're not just another suit."
Yeah. Well, technically it is an Iron Man suit.
and totally agree that we have, sometimes we have to infuse the personal touches and sort of reflect on how our personal journey affects our professional journey and vice versa. I know in your professional life, you don't really deal with finance at all. But you yourself have taught yourself kind of investing, finances, and that was actually the point that we left off of last time we chatted. And there was a huge IPO that happened recently. Or maybe not IPO specifically. I think it's called direct listing.
Yep, direct listing with Coinbase. That happened Wednesday, April 14th, and that's a huge milestone in the cryptocurrency space, mostly because it's the first time a really large cryptocurrency company was listed in the stock market. So, I mean, that had big implications because the fact is that while the traditional cryptocurrency community, which is generally very, anti-financial institution, and they have this sentiment towards Coinbase, which usually veers away from it, and it's mostly because Coinbase is really regulated. It's really aligns with being able to make sure cryptocurrency is made easy. And by making made easy, that technically means it requires working alongside, regulatory bodies and such. So that's where, there's two sides of the coin. People are excited about the fact that the biggest, cryptocurrency exchange in the U.S. is now hitting the mainstream and being able to get, into the public eye that way. But also at the same time, it's exposure, even for decentralized communities and such. It's exposure for the cryptocurrency community in general.
Yeah, and I remember watching a documentary recently about these sort of like almost subcultures of cryptocurrency, almost like warring factions of philosophy on how to deal with. And it's super amazing, highly recommended. But I've always had this interest, but not everyone is probably as knowledgeable as you and I about this topic. So maybe just give us like a high level lowdown on what crypto is and what blockchain technology is.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that there's a lot of other people that could probably describe it better than me, but at least my take on it from a business standpoint and from a non-technical standpoint and from a marketer standpoint, trying to take something really complex and make it into plain English. So if you imagine blockchain as a technology, the last time something big happened like this was when they created HTTP, which, by the way, no one ever asks what HTTP stands for or what it actually means. But that's kind of what blockchain is. You don't really need to truly explain it when you talk about the end result or what usage you get out of it. So, but to put it simply, blockchain is really just a different specialized type of database. So you can imagine like a typical database has different data sets that work independently from each other. You just load data into the database and none of it has anything to do with each other. But with blockchain, the data is stored in different blocks and those blocks are chained together. That's why it's called blockchain. And for that reason, it's able to go ahead and work on its own system without having to require servers or anything like that, because primarily it's used as a way of being able to store data. For the most part, it's used as a ledger of transactions, and ledger of transactions ties directly to cryptocurrency. So as an example of Bitcoin, for instance, which doesn't have a company. There's no business called Bitcoin. There's no CEO of Bitcoin. It's just Bitcoin, which is owned and used by the users, and it's fueled by the users. There's no single entity, which is the reason why it has comparisons to gold, for instance, because there's no company for gold. There's just gold. And that's why Bitcoin is almost scary for a lot of people, that in the capacity that it doesn't have a regulatory body. It doesn't have like a board of directors that manage it. It's just a whole bunch of people using it and a whole bunch of developers that are fueling the open source platform. So you can imagine that Bitcoin has that decentralized mentality, and it's at the core of its mechanisms. But ultimately, it allows free banking. It allows people to own their own funds, and allows people to send their own funds without requiring signing up with a bank or signing up with a different company to go ahead and monitor your transactions. Or you can pretty much own your money digitally. And at a way that doesn't have really a ceiling. I think I had a colleague once tell me that the cryptocurrency sits within a pillar of three different entities. One, decentralization; two, scalability; and three, security. And within those three pillars, the number one cryptocurrency will be the one that is the most decentralized, that doesn't have anything tied to it, the CEO that does something scummy, things like that. Scalability to be able to scale to the highest opportunities to mitigate any weaknesses that it might have within its technology, as well as security to be able to keep the information secure within the blockchain. Ultimately, Bitcoin sits at the closest within all three of those. I guess they call it the trilemma. And Ethereum sits a little bit less, and you can tell clearly that Bitcoin has a stronger decentralization than Ethereum, for instance, right? And that's the reason why Bitcoin sits at the top. So if you want to think of it like from a open banking standpoint, that kind of sits as the three primary pillars for what really works. So to put it simply, blockchain is a technology that is huge and it's not going away. Cryptocurrency is the use case of blockchain, which allows people to transact payments. It allows people to send smart contracts, which include documentation and such, across the world, and it unlocks things like NFTs and Cryptokitties and stuff like that, right? So it's if I were to put it as simple as possible, it's a very confusing but totally plausible financial system that is completely disconnected from the existing regulatory bodies of banks and such.
No, that's a great explanation, and I love how you touch upon the application of the technology, sort of removed from the commodity or against the currency aspect of the technology. And I think it's super important to understand that the technology of the internet, so like an interconnected network of networks, is technology. But how you use this technology, how you apply it, so people use peer-to-peer streaming or downloading in the form of torrents. You have institutions that create their own intranet, so their network within their, for example, universities or large companies. So how you apply this technology is just almost as important as what is the most prevalent use of the technology. And you spoke a bit about the application, Cryptokitties and NFTs, and I think the biggest buzzword recently is NFT. I spoke a bit about this in a different podcast that was hosted by a friend of mine. So maybe can you just explain to our audiences what NFTs are, or how we've seen it used in recent days?
So, here's the thing about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. It's immutable, it's permanent, it provides ownership. Now, if you look at things like, for instance, NBA Top Shots, which is the hottest NFT right now, for people that don't know it, it's essentially owning different clips or moments of NBA history. So it could be Dirk Nowitzki doing a layup in 1995, you know what I mean, during a game versus the Suns or something, right? Or it could be a highlight reel of Jordan doing the tongue out dunk from the foul line or something. It could be anything that you can bid towards and purchase. Using NFTs, and there's a collectibleness to it. Obviously, it's very similar to the sneaker craze, if anything. But NFTs are a tricky thing because NFTs are talked about like it's the next ICO, which ICOs were big in 2017, 2018, but that thing fizzled mostly because of regulatory issues. But NFTs, it could go either way. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know personally if it's going to have the legs to continue, but I love the idea of application within blockchain and the purposeful use of using the Ethereum network to host NFTs. I found Valuables by Cent on Twitter to be one of the most unique uses of NFT as well too, where people could own a tweet and that the proceeds would go very small amounts of the network, but the majority of it will go to the content creator, because I'm a big believer that content creators do not get paid enough by the platforms that they're sending so much content to. And I think NFTs and specifically valuables really found a way to incentivize and creators from platforms that generally never give money to anyone. So valuables, I think it was like $69 million to the first tweet ever, which Jack went ahead and he went ahead and donated, I think, the majority of it or all of it. But ultimately, the NFT market is unique because we're talking about from a psychological perspective, and lately I've been writing a lot about neuromarketing, the addiction aspect of collecting things. And we could talk about Pokemon Go. We could talk about like just anything related to comic book collecting, whatever you want to call it. There's an addictive nature towards being able to collect those things. And NFTs perfectly align with that addiction process, but also utilizing it in a digital manner that maintains, full ownership under something on a blockchain. So definitely, I'm a big believer in its application, big believer in its use case. Whether NFTs on the Ethereum network are going to stay forever, I'm not sure, but I do love the idea of them for sure.
Human nature, human behavior is mostly unchanged, and throughout history, what happens is that you see patterns of human behavior. It's not, history repeating itself. It's actually just the people behind these historical events are repeating the behaviors for this. And I think human nature is so important in terms of marketing and whatnot. And it's what I'm deeply interested in. To see like new technology and people just latch onto it because of how it serves that human nature aspect. So for you, it would be interpreting it through like the neurochemicals or like the neurology of marketing. Like you touch upon a few points that I think are very like intrinsic to human nature and like the fact of being human. Wanting to own things, wanting to have something like endure, right? And that's whole like pattern recognition and the aspect of trying to categorize and organize the world information. I think that's something innate to us as being humans, and just layering on top technology, then NFT could be a medium to access all these different aspects of the human psyche and sort of the neurochemicals that drive us. It's deeply interesting. Like, for example, why do people play, these RPGs that you can collect weapons and kind of upgrade and improve your character? It doesn't tangibly exist in the real world, but to them, it's just as real as, a Mercedes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you know what? That's like, you when it comes to like car auctions, for instance, and you see really, really cool cars that are like 1920s, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's the same kind of mentality. Humans have this innate nature to, especially when you have the funds to do it. Because right now, the whole sentiment with the cryptocurrency community is HODL, as they call it, but it's really just a spelling error of holding. And
yeah.
You can hold forever, but like, what are you going to do with it? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you got to do something with it, whether that means, cashing it out, converting it back to fiat currencies, or just spending it on things. You know what I mean? Like I worked with BitRefill before, and they offered opportunities to go ahead and take your Bitcoin and convert it to gift cards. So part of that marketing campaign was to go ahead and start living on cryptocurrency by being able to take your Bitcoin and whatever cryptocurrencies you have, convert them into Amazon gift cards so you can buy stuff on Amazon, convert it to Best Buy for laptops, convert it to Uber credits so you can order for Uber Eats or get drives anywhere, or flights and hotels. Mm-hmm. But like inevitably people are going to look for, okay, well, what can I do with it? Right now, the most current thing is to say, hey, Tesla went ahead and they're natively accepting Bitcoin for purchases of any Tesla vehicle. Inevitably, it's kind of like having a margin account on Questrade, where like, you buy a bunch of stock and then you're like, do I cash out the stock, Like, do I just cash out on my Apple shares I've carried for its past 3 years, or do I go ahead and you can actually get a loan against your mortgage, a loan against your margin account. So you don't have to sell your shares, but ultimately, we want to be able to take the capital gains we've made and use it towards something. And I think NFTs provide that opportunity to it's a combination of, like you said, the psychology of wanting to own a collectible in video games or anything like that, but also combining that with the fact that you have capital gains in something. What are you going to spend it on, right?
No, for sure. And I think the ownership aspects of the decentralized ledger and sort of the accounts, it's so powerful because I know you're in the market for a car. I'm loosely looking for a car. When you buy a second-hand car, you kind of have to worry about, okay, what's the ownership history? And typically, for the second-hand car market, it's first owner, etc. But I've also been looking. I like cars. I like cars that look to some ugly, but to me beautiful.
Diamond in the rough.
So I've been looking at old BMWs, and some of the cars you have to figure out. Okay, this is 3 owners now, or 2 owners. But there's basically no real record of ownership or the history of that car. Aside from a Carfax or taking the seller's word for it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And it's harder with older vehicles too, right? Because with older vehicles,
exactly.
There's a longer list. I'm looking at cars right now that maybe have 1 or 2 owners, and it's not really a big deal. But you start to say, okay, if it's got 5 owners because it's an older car, then you kind of start to question where do they come from? You might have some kind of service record, but there's no. We're in a world now, I think, where we want to have as much information about any kind of purchase decision we make, and that's why reviews online are such an important factor. Trusted reviews, for that matter. That's why word of mouth will always be king when it comes to selling things. And we just want to really gather as much as we can because. In the past, we would have just relied on a salesperson to tell us what we should know, or we would rely on the packaging to say everything that needs to be said about a product before we go ahead and purchase it. But nowadays, we want more information. We want more of everything.
Yeah, and sort of the second thing to that would be a no-brainer for the application of NFTs is title of a property, Right now, it's this archaic system where the government controls it. You have to make in a request. They send you the documents and whatnot, and you have to go through a lawyer. All these extra fees can potentially solve this problem and create a completely new industry where the titles can be publicly accessed by anyone, and all the history of ownership and, like you said, maybe even improvements, renovations, and whatnot to help add value to a property can be tied to using blockchain technology to kind of creates this history that anyone can look up. And just like you said, I want to know if there was a flood or if someone was murdered in my house that I'm planning to buy. I have this theory that it's actually better to buy a murder house.
How come? Why is that?
Because I personally not a believer of these things ghosts or haunted houses and whatnot. So I don't really care whether or not someone's died in this house that I'm going to be living in. But I just want to be able to realize the quote unquote market value of this house rather than. Because people is not going to want to buy it if they know.
Yeah, of course. So. It's a cheaper buy, if anything. But I tell you one thing, maybe I watched too much Ghost Adventures or something, but I will not buy houses that have murder in it. That's my position on it. I can't. No. If I know that there's some kind of negative energy within a room, whether it's the struggle or the impending death of someone, right? I think I like to have good vibes, you know what I mean, inside of my place. So I think even one time I went around with a real estate agent looking to rent a place. me and Madeline were looking around, and we had a real estate agent, and we were looking at this place, nice townhouse. We're like, oh, it looks good. And then we look at the curtains were closed. Let's take a look at the view. We open the curtains, and there's a full graveyard in the backyard, like a huge, like infinite, like you just look left to right, and it's all graveyard. And we're like, nope, let's walk right out. It's like, nope, can't have a view of that when I wake up in the morning. You know what I mean?
There's this new development, or fairly new developments, just down a little further south from where we are, in Etobicoke, and there's this row of townhouses that back onto this small little plot of it's a memorial garden. And I was like, why would people build something there? It just doesn't make sense. But I guess it's a profitable plot of land. You know what?
There's people that will have no problem buying a place like that. That's okay. Yeah, that's
this guy.
That's that guy.
Well, what about hotels? Like, people die all the time in hotel rooms.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, there's a hotel room is a temporary stay. I totally, I'm down with staying at a ghost hotel just for the freak nature of it. I wouldn't do it for a place to buy. I wouldn't do it for a place where I got to wake up early in the morning for something super important. And I sure as heck I'm going to bring like those ghost hunting tools. I can't remember what they're called, but the electromagnetic EMF reader I'm going to have around, as well as a few different cameras everywhere just to catch something. But I don't know. We just like ghost hunting, but now we actually do it. But I mean, just the idea of it's kind of fun. But I temporary, yes. But I gotta go. I gotta land my head at the end of the day someplace that I know that there's no freaky spirits anywhere.
Okay, then. The Fairmont, fair warning for those. The Fairmont's been around in Canada for so long that's statistically there have been like probably every room has had someone who passed away in it. And I hear these stories from my friends, but let's just leave it at that.
Cool.
Now, you and I are both marketers, and we both have this deep interest in this new technology, blockchain. And just as anything else in history, like I said, human behavior is the thing that drives, the repeating history. We see it happen with radio. We see it happen with TV and the internet. Advertising ruins everything. And how do you kind of envision marketing and advertising getting its claws into blockchain?
So at the core of almost every blockchain project is a really good product, obviously, but more than any other kind of industry is marketing. A few years ago when I first started working with different blockchain companies, I believe they did some stats on AngelList that said 37% of blockchain related jobs were actually remote. And in comparison to other companies in different industries, they were only at about 15%. So naturally, blockchain has always been, if you want to call it, pandemic proof. But the idea is that with and specifically related to marketing, there's a few things to it. Like when it comes to blockchain is a very confusing topic, and for content marketers, it's really important to be able to put it into a language or an understanding for their customers to be able to say, okay, well, what's the real value out of it? How can I present that in different content marketing platforms, for instance, right? So that's a heavy avenue that's really necessary. Otherwise, a lot of blockchain products just look like it's built for developers and engineers. So you need to have that sort of that voice and branding that makes it more human. From a marketing standpoint too, like you look at it from, and if you talk about advertising specifically, there's a lot of cryptocurrency ad networks. There's a lot of sponsored opportunities you can get on different cryptocurrency or blockchain, publications, and paid work there's a big one. There's a lot of money being spent specifically on paid traffic to different cryptocurrency startups and different websites and products and such. I think as we're kind of getting along now towards the point where financial institutions are starting to include Bitcoin in their investment and their strategies. I mean, off the top of my head, I know that obviously like Visa, MasterCard, and like Morgan Stanley and PayPal have all brought that into their company, and you have other ones like Goldman Sachs or even one that was super against Bitcoin 3 years ago, was JP Morgan, but now they're having discussions on their earning calls about including it in their portfolios and offering it to their larger clients, right? So you could tell with this institutional inbound, I guess, if anything, towards it provides a solidarity across the market, and that solidarity is kind of important because what a lot of people don't realize, and a lot of onboarding from different companies like Kraken and different other much larger organizations in the cryptocurrency space, they have they have to dispel a lot of myths, because with cryptocurrency there's a lot of myths of like, okay, it's only used for funneling laundering money, it's too volatile to go ahead and build a career on it, it's different things like that. There's a lot of hesitancy sometimes for different marketers to say, hey, I work for a cryptocurrency exchange or maybe some other kind of startup that works within cryptocurrency. But like it becomes, as the years go by, it's becoming more common. But there's, as it still finds its way, on one side towards regulation and the other side towards, power to the people, there's definitely an avenue where marketers might feel like it's too risky, for many different reasons. But what I've seen, at least from the past few years, is that while price and volatility does have a lot to do with the success of some cryptocurrency companies, the financial backing from MicroStrategy, PayPal, like with Grayscale, with Morgan Stanley, and allowing a much larger pool of larger sums of money to be part of the Bitcoin ecosystem, for instance, that just says on its own that there's more structure and base around being able to say, hey, it's okay to work in crypto. But yeah, it's a never ending thing. Like if you're sitting there for like Thanksgiving dinner, and cousin Mike got a new job as a salesperson with a cryptocurrency exchange, they're going to get a lot of really dumb questions, unfortunately, from some certain relatives. But to me, that's way more exciting than talk about any other industry that everyone kind of knows about. It's kind of exciting when I'm talking with people and networking, and if I just said, hey, in the past I would just say, hey, I'm marketing for this and that. That's cool, nothing wrong with that. But when I mention, I've worked with different fintech companies, and they're still like, okay, what's fintech? But if you mention cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and blockchain, suddenly ears perk up a little bit, and they're like, oh, what's they have a million questions, and some of those questions can be kind of silly, but I mean, like at the end of the day, this is just a natural thing, because people used to say the same thing about the internet, because the internet apparently was just a fad. And now it's just impossible to think of life without it, right? So
yeah, I totally see the parallel between the internet and blockchain technology, and in parallel, like kind of cryptocurrency. I like with any new technology, it always comes back to a marketing problem, right? Whether it's PR or whether it's communication, like you said, making sure there's like the message is clear and easy to understand. Like that's marketing 101. And then what I see kind of like the opportunity for advertisers, and I think ad networks and exchanges, you touched upon this as well briefly, is using, people are saying that the era of the cookie is gone, right? And Google has sort of mandated and sort of promised the people that third-party cookies will no longer be accepted on browsers and et cetera, et cetera. And I genuinely think, for all those listening out there, start collecting first-party data. Like this is point number one, because the longer history you have in your first-party data, the more robust it's going to be. And not if, but when third-party cookies are no longer supported, you have your own database to work off of. And that's sort of like, mitigating the risk for sure. But I think the next thing to think about is how companies can leverage blockchain technology to serve as a means of tracking web traffic and interactions. And I think that's super interesting to not have it centralized to one particular company or one particular entity, but anyone can potentially access the interactions and mine that data for better targeting, for example, or to target particular audiences or ads and whatnot. But of course, like that will come to the point where one of the three pillars of crypto is privacy, right? Then it becomes a question of how comfortable are people with sharing their personal information. I have this deep notion that in the not so distant future, people are going to be okay with like, oh, you know everything about me, and that's fine. As long as I can live my life easier, get the products that I want quicker, and it's becoming more and more known. So like we all shop on Amazon, and any interactions we do with the website just feeds this giant behemoth of like data collection and analysis. So I echo your sentiment. It's really exciting, and it's really interesting to follow the developments of this technology, to see how it's being applied, and just talking to more and more people about it and getting their perspective. Because a lot of people do have these misconceptions. They don't understand it. Heck, I've been learning and researching about this for like two years, and I still don't understand it very well.
It's definitely one of those things that I don't even fully understand from a developer standpoint. But I agree with you in the capacity when it comes to privacy. I'm actually writing something next week, I think, about neuromarketing and its intersection point between convenience and privacy. Because I think I'll have to exactly figure out off the top of my head. I don't remember why, but the humans are definitely okay with giving up their privacy for convenience. Like it's social media platforms have exploited the crap out of that. But even from a neuroscience standpoint, humans are totally okay with giving up privacy in order to be able to live an easier life, like you said. It's almost physiological at this point. But, that's partially why, like 10 years ago, the idea to throw an ad in front of a YouTube video was preposterous to me, right? Now it's like common nature. I can't see a video without seeing an ad, and I'm cool with it, right? So I think that's, and not only is it just an ad, but it's also one targeted specifically for me, you know what I mean, at my age group, in my country, in my city, and my interest groups, and it's especially when you're talking about like Google, Amazon, or like massive organizations that are collecting a ridiculous amount of data, they can do a lot with it. I mean, there's a really solid book by the founder of OkCupid, the dating site. He put out a book. He was a data scientist. He put a book called Dataclysm, and it's fantastic in terms of being able to see it from the perspective of not just like human nature and human behavior, but to be able to see them take data and create a narrative out of it and be able to understand people better. And not only that, be able to build a better product from it as well too. But data science is definitely something that comes up a lot in terms of what do you do with all this data? You know what I mean? Like, okay, that's awesome that you went ahead and collected something beyond Google Analytics, but like, what do you do with this data now? And that's part of this whole thing with blockchain, is that, we can find a way to go ahead and right now there aren't a lot of marketing tools built on blockchain. Maybe there will be soon, but right now there isn't really a lot of them out there right now. It's more just a lot of exchanges and investments and some things related to payments and utility, but we haven't reached a point where there's marketing tools specifically built on the blockchain. They're more just like fun things like NFTs and Cryptokitties, right? That they're more like fun about it, but I think that's a big area that potentially could be explored, that could potentially align with data science and being able to take data and make something useful out of it, maybe as a storage vehicle for it, but also to be able to utilize maybe artificial intelligence to be able to make sense of the data on top of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're at this precipice and this inflection point in history, and we're witnessing it, we're living it right now, where there's going to be I feel it so visceral that I feel it, that there's going to be a dramatic shift in sort of human behavior because of this technology, just as how the radio did it, the telephone or telegram, telephone, radio, etc., up until this current point where we're living through this blockchain revolution. I don't know what's next. I don't know what's going to be kind of like the thing that's going to push it into the mainstream, and it's going to be like everyday use, just as how we can't live without the internet now.
Yeah.
But I think we're almost there.
Yeah,
We're
totally.
Witnessing it definitely within our lifetime.
I think the internet specifically. Remember when the internet used to be, you had a 56K modem and you had to, connect to the internet and you hear the modem sound, and then your parents are telling you to get off the internet. You know what I mean? And like, that's where we're at right now, where it's like we're just touching a little bit using very basic, slow internet. Like we're talking like really expensive transactions with Bitcoin, really long periods of time where, you have to wait for confirmations on the blockchain before a payment can go through. That's the same thing as like us connecting the internet right now with a 14.4 modem. You know what I mean? And I think that's when we envision where we're going to go. Inevitably, when you think about scalability, there's opportunities to improve different blockchain technologies to offer, like for instance, Ethereum right now fees are really high to go ahead, and they've been very high the past a little while, and we're thinking, different future solutions, ETH 2.0 that might solve it. But then there's Cardano, which it doesn't have any active projects, a lot of speculation still, but as a technology, it does offer faster transactions as well as cheaper transactions. Bitcoin has Bitcoin Cash, which has a very small community, but ultimately they offer lower transaction fees than Bitcoin, and so there's always going to be improvements. Bitcoin has the Lightning Network that provides faster batched transactions that are cheaper, and I think that's, again, this is one of those things where we're still seeing a baby grow more than anything, right? And so we're still very, very far away from seeing its full potential. But I'm sure that something related to quantum computing in the future might have something to do with that.
All right, you mentioned a few times about your Substack, and I always read it. I find the topic super interesting, and it's fun and engaging to read. Where can people find you, sub to you, and interact with your content? So you can catch me on my Substack, marketer.substack.com. You can catch me on Twitter, Ramon Live, Live. And I think that I also have a Marketer Daily Twitter account, Marketer_Daily, which, by the way, I haven't really touched a lot lately, but usually I just have it spinning, marketing tips and stuff like that, different articles online, so anyone can take a look at. But yeah, I usually deliver them out twice a week. It was 3 times a week, but I got to spend more time promoting it. I got to spend more time on my other stuff. So scaled back for now, twice a week, based on availability. But for the most part, it's still my outlet for providing, marketing advice and whether it's for marketers or business owners or whatever it is. I'd like to make sure that, whatever I've learned in my 14-year career of marketing, that I can share it in a fun kind of way. So definitely feel free to subscribe. Love it. I'll include all the links in the description box below. And thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate, and always fun to chat with you.
Thanks, Brian. It's awesome talking to you as well too, man. Great work on the channel as well too. I'm loving every video.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So until next time, we'll chat again.
See you later, man.
Hi, Brian here. Thank you so much for watching to the very end. I really appreciate it. I make videos on business, advertising, and marketing. So be sure to subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so that you're alerted when the next videos come out. So stay tuned.